if you look at tomography, which is a life-saving technology used in the healthcare sector, and what we've done, the idea was because UF in Eastern Finland, they are on this, let's say, called the inverse problem or type of algorithm. They are world leading and have been working with the medical sector. However, what we thought was that if we bring this to industry, and it should operate under not clean environments, meaning very harsh, hostile process environments, still work, and also have a, let's say, very high resolution and high sampling frequency. If we can enable that, and also how we deal with let's say the contaminants, that if because we're in touch with the fluid or matter, that it means that if you are fouling your sensor surface, can it still work? So we kind of did a technology transfer and a spin-off and brought this into industry. We still have ties to the university because we kind of cooperate with them in terms of certain R&D. We actually also get, let's say, people there, PhDs, postdocs, coming to us to work in the industry. So it's a very healthy collaboration in that sense. But of course, when you go from academia R&D, you start with, let's say, commercial R&D, or let's say application development. That's very different, because suddenly you are kind of looking at what are the or the user needs and values. What are they looking for? Because that might be a bit different. And then at some point you decide to become commercial as a growth company. And then it's not like in academia you can have a research project for years, right? But suddenly you have to promise customers, you need these results by then. And then we don't talk about, well, it maybe takes a few more weeks or a few months. No, it needs to be there when you promise it to be. So we kind of gone through those phases. So now we are in the growth phase commercially.
Great stuff. And I mean, you mentioned already how the tomographic tech that you use kind of has originates from the medical sector. I mean, how have you managed to kind of implement its use with into the kind of heavy industry? Because I mean, most notably oil and gas, I believe.
Yeah. Well, of course, because when you have, let's say, the basic R&D or research done, and at the university we were also running, let's say, various piloting and other, let's say, also industry applications. And what happens then if you want to do a tech transfer? Of course, what we've engaged with is, of course, the users, the end users, business to business, oil and gas companies. We also got Shell Ventures on board in 2016, as well as Repsol Ventures. So 2 energy companies coming in as equity partners, shareholders in a company. And that, of course, brought also more awareness and focus to go that route. But, you know, you learn from, of course, having certain knowledge about the energy sector, or myself being working there for some 16 years. But what you do then, Jay, is that you have to kind of work together with your user, your customer, and understand what are their pain points. How can we bring, for instance, tomography to solve those issues? And then you kind of build your prototypes, you do piloting, and you kind of get the feedback to that. Okay, this worked well, this we can tweak a bit. So we've been through that phase with various oil companies. And based on that, we are, let's say, now in the developed our, let's say, the first commercial generation of devices. And remember, we do hardware, but it's linked with the software, because it's the software that interprets the signals and understands what's going on. So it's one package.
So in terms of kind of what Rocsole are and what you do, and what your purpose is going forward, I mean, are you kind of exclusively a company that kind of delivers tomographic tech solutions to industry? Or are your operations more diverse?
Well, what you say? I mean, our base, the core technology is the tomography, definitely. But what we look at, and we add elements like, of course, we use AI, machine learning, we have IoT, but it's not like, oh, we have this machine learning thing. Would you like to have that? If you understand, it's more like we are like consultants with the customers. What are your pain points? What are your challenges? Oh, you struggle with this in operations. Okay, let us see how we could enable or solve that with giving you actionable insights in real time with our type of solutions. So it's like, of course, for many also exploratory, that it's the first time they see something like that. It's never been possible to decode this type of harsh environments where we have to deal with, waste products. You have deposits, scale, wax, sand, emulsions, things you don't want in process or manufacturing industries. When you try to kind of separate matter or have a very high uptime and reduce maintenance. So they say, oh, typically we just plan our shutdowns, or we need to do a lot of maintenance, or suddenly we have an unplanned shutdown because we don't know what's going on. And we say, well, now you get data 24/7 and actually see that, wow, this is actually opening up new possibilities. So it's in that sense also game changing. It's not just kind of, we go in and replace what they use today in terms of instrumentation, but it's also opening up a lot more services. So of course, our plan is, let's say that there's going to be a multitude of other services, also data analytics that's coming.
That's fantastic. And I mean, thus far, what's been the feedback from your clients to date? Have they given you feedback on the kind of value adds and efficiencies, that you guys have kind of helped them achieve?
I think we're on the right track there, because we get a lot of very good feedback, and good feedback means also what can we improve, what's working well, and what additional features would I like to have. Because it's always about, for me, it's like, I don't love my products, I love my business, meaning that how can I be as good to my customers as possible in terms of what we're doing. So they said that we've enabled completely novel features. They want to replace what they have in their fleets with what we have. So then, of course, comes the question, so how do we scale up? Is it scalable? And that's how we have enabled that also with, let's say, third-party manufacturing. However, we do the assembly, end-of-line testing, packaging, kind of have the right quality with everything we do. We serve them with, let's say, we can do remote support, remote operations, and in terms of the field installation, field operations. But of course, we're still early on, so we're kind of learning and improving all the time.
In terms of like the industry that you kind of operate within, are you kind of pioneers in that? You started it, or are you going to a pre-existing industry where there's a level of competition? What's the state of things at the moment?
Of course, typically the worst or the biggest competitor, I would say, is always status quo. If you stay with what you're doing, meaning we're doing nothing and keeping business as it is, or there's of course a lot of incumbent technology companies which use other technology, because it's a huge market we're serving. If you look at the total addressable market in terms of industrial automation only, that's some, what is it now? $5-6 billion yearly. And it's anticipated to grow almost triple in the next 5 years. However, these incumbents, they have a different type of solutions which doesn't work in the type of challenging operations you have today. Whether we talk about oil and gas, or we go to electronics production, we can talk about chemicals, pulp and paper, mining, etc. Because today processing and let's say operational excellence you want to achieve means you have to cope with those upset conditions.
I mean, could you just give me a very kind of brief kind of overview of exactly what tomographic technology is, just so when I'm writing it for our readers who might not be aware of what tomographic technology is?
Yeah, what it is, it actually, let's say, tomography, I mean, it's like taking snapshots with a certain frequency in terms of looking into matters, various matter or fluids, and by using electrical signals. If you send out an electrical signal into water, you know that it has a high conductivity level, because you shouldn't, when you shower, you shouldn't have your hair dryer in the shower, right? Because you have a high conductivity level. Oil, on the other hand, has a very low conductivity. Conductivity means that how does the current get transported in that fluid?
I mean, you know, what next for the company over the coming 18 months, perhaps going forward to the medium term? I mean, where do you envisage Rocsole 5 to 10 years from now?
So of course, for me and my team, now it's about deliver. We're going to ramp up and scale up. And we know also the model, this is actually set for exponential growth. Typically, when I go into ventures, and this is my 8th venture, so I always want to prove what kind of business model do we have? Is it only going to be a steady linear growth, or can you actually get to that type of hockey stick scenario? And hockey sticks means that there's some triggers that can allow you to grow exponentially. We have detailed out that with our key customers. So we know that when we hit, and certain triggers we have already met, so we know that it's coming a growth, quite rapid growth in the next 18 months. Means that that's why we're looking at, do we have the right resources? How do we scale this? What corporations do we need in terms of manufacturing, projects, software and AI, etc. So we're looking at the whole infrastructure or the ecosystem around us to be able to kind of meet those expectations.
You actually touched upon something a moment ago that you also mentioned in your earlier answers, that you're something of a serial entrepreneur. Perhaps it's perhaps something of an addiction on your part. So can you talk more about, you know, kind of entrepreneurship and kind of, you know, what the appeal is, you know, why, you know, what makes you want to kind of keep building?
I think what drives me as an entrepreneur, of course, coming with, I mean, I've commercialized some 30 technologies, both hardware and software. And what's interesting for me is that, well, I want to shift mindsets and do something game changing, which I think my driver there is, of course, I want to make industry more efficient and safer, but it's also good for our planet. And I think that's my driving force behind this.